quiet today, Ellen.
Busy time.
Everybody's busy summaring,
Yeah, I guess so.
very busy from summarizing.
Very good.
Oh, I have to tell you one thing. I'm working on this bid for funding through the anyway, it doesn't matter who. And so one of the things I had to do today was write up a little bit more of what a VR environment could actually be. So I had this sentence where, because I go through a little bit of the reading and writing, all that stuff we talked about, and then there's the thinking. Oh, okay, I'm just going to open it again for me so I read it right. So I just wrote at the end that what I'm looking to build is a thinking space so compelling that users will come to say, hang on a minute, why am I mumbling? Hang on a minute, I just need to put on my thinking cap. So positioning the headset as a thinking cap. Thought that was cute. It kind of happened while I was writing the sentence.
I dig it. And it speaks to how non-invasive it should be.
Yeah, that obviously it should feel, I mean, sometimes I like to work with a baseball cap because it helps reduce stuff, but even that is a bit invasive. So all those people saying, oh, VR headset, it's too much. Of course we agree with them. But the goal is to make it less and to use as much as we can now in short periods.
Yep. Yep. Very good.
Did you see the test I did based on our last meeting?
I saw a bit of it.
Shall I show you again? Should have it here. Yeah, just a discussion point. I don't know if anyone else is coming, but so yeah, okay, I'll just wait for Peter too. Cool. Hey, Peter.
Good morning.
Morning,
Munching away while watching.
oh, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, last week I was ill for a couple of days, starting when I talked to you guys, but I'm very glad we had that conversation. It was very inspirational for several reasons. So based on that conversation, I did this. This is the video I sent. This is a recap so we can talk. It is a normal PDF, but the request is, as you can see here, read it full screen 2 pages up. That's the one request from the user. It can be in any software. This is not about necessarily author, but so the concept is on the left, there is an AI summary. On the right is the first page of the article. Consistently. Of course, if you use Reader, down at the bottom of each article, you can click on the number citation, then you open that article. Why is that not working? You open that article to that page. Have I moved stuff? I may have moved stuff. Anyway, what do you think of the idea of balancing two different ways in?
But I would love if okay, so one thing I would love would be if there was a convention, which there isn't, but if there was a convention packaged with PDFs where you could, say, show me the whole thing, carte blanche, or give me the summary view, which would then, take pages 3, 5, 7, and concatenate so that you could see a summary of all of them, right? Of just the summary parts with links to the articles and sort of backload the actual articles. Like going back to the plurality of views.
Hang on. So the convention will be to package different layers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would love it if almost like as if you were talking to a prompt engine where you could say, tell me the highlights of these 20 essays, and then you get them concatenated with links to the actual article. So I'm not getting the concern would be breaking the flow from reading articles to reading summaries to articles to summaries to articles. I mean, if it was a longer article, no problem. If it's a page long, then it's a different flow. But anyway, I know that's not a convention right now. So then the other idea would be like, again, just not suggesting this per se, just sort of the ideas that are popping out would be that like the summary side would somehow be a different color or shown to be aesthetically different than the article. And then if the summary side is typically, like in this case, 4 lines long, then beneath it, it would be cool to have that inside out view that we mentioned, where it's like, here are relevant links, here are relevant concepts, here's the things that this person may be assuming that we know, or referring to here, just other stuff to look around from this one idea, and have that underneath the summary. So almost the X-ray view, and that could maybe take up that bottom 2/3.
Yeah, I did. Obviously, having it done editorially, of course, is a very good idea. But I did a test where I did, let's see, something like this, right? This is obviously from a short bit, but one of the benefits of text, obviously, is that sentences can be unique, which is why they can be addressable. But the problem with that is compressing text into some kind of keyword. It really loses so much,
Yeah,
right? And I think that's really what we're struggling with there.
definitely.
I mean, there are also different reading ways. If you look at these two, the top one, of course, is still selected. That makes it hard to read, but it's a bit chunky. The one below in lists, yeah. Okay, let me just try the 5 keywords. It's not so bad, actually.
I find that I get an awful lot of mileage out of the concordance feature in DevonThink, where when you select a term, you'll get the keywords appearing in context and little snippets, but the concordance itself showing you the actual terms themselves. Because at least then I can see it. I might not have in my head what the term is to be looking for it, but then I'll see it in the list and it'll jump out. And that sort of helps in navigating and finding my way around, and also just getting a sense of the general content.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important. So for this document that I was working on earlier today, hang on, let me just open it.
So what I'm sort of thinking is maybe right next to the AI summary, you could have a concordance of terms for that particular item within the collection.
Yeah, I mean, we must remember, and I think we agree, but just to remind us, we're talking about 2 different things, of course. One is us potentially editorializing our own work, but also more systematic approaches to reading, a wider range of literature, right? So hang on. So we just looked at a proposal for some funding. Just don't want to share the name with everything yet. So Alan has some comments.
Yeah, so I liked the perception bit, the other the highly active, so perception highly active, and then there was another thing before that. And it got me thinking that I wonder if a response, it'd be great if we could A/B test this, but the response might be different if the VR part was demoted somewhat, okay, and for, taking a broader horizon view, there could be a couple of premises that you could get them to agree with pretty easily, right? That things are more complicated. We have these incredible tools like AI that are giving us access in different ways to manipulate and retrieve and understand data. But we don't yet have interfaces that are anything but flat. So our limitation of comprehension, our comprehension is limited by these interfaces. So we have more data about the world. We have now more tools to access and try and tear apart, recombine this data. But that doesn't necessarily lead to greater comprehension. So far, what we have for comprehension is like sound bites, you know? So it isn't just VR for VR's sake, because that could be a hard pill to swallow. It isn't just mind maps for mind maps sake. It's here's an exploration in what will be necessary as ways to capture the complexity of the information we're getting into, right? Journalism has been excellent for the last 100 years as a way to try and as attempts to try and unpack complexity, but the future of journalism could be such that it relies on higher dimensional structures.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I just changed a bit at the end text based on that. Right. By the way, this is not changing the subject, but I take pictures of Edgar and I make these books and it's all fun and it's my passion. The same company that does the printing, Blurb, they also do zines, like news magazine type things.
Zines.
Zines, yeah, zines, zines, different pronunciations, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they were called zines in England.
It may just be me. Let's just pretend it's me. I've already done one really bad, stupid thing today, so let's pretend. But it just makes me think of your large paper. We should also maybe consider trying to issue maybe the journal as a large zine in paper.
I used to make zines.
Not surprised at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I actually found out last week or 2 weeks ago about one of the people that's in the future of coding. His wife is a researcher at Columbia, and she has a thing called an accordion book project, and it's fascinating. It's a book that folds out accordion style, and I'm almost thinking maybe this scroll thing was inspired by that. Perhaps maybe I forgot about it or something. I don't know, but it's a really cool format. It's similar, in some ways it's more portable, but you still get to spread it out. Anyway, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Hang on, because there's so many things percolating now. I'm going to share screen again and go back to a page of this. So on this thing here, so let me just summarize it. So the setting is people working at desks. People aren't going to, at least for the near future, rearrange their rooms for VR. So reading is, it can be just a little document like Adam has experimented with. But of course, as we talk about, you should be able to expand things. And then as Peter has gone on and on about, thankfully, we should also have a library there. And the library can be a simple, almost normal bookshelf when not active. And then when active, it can be a multi-dimensional thing. And then when we go to writing, you can just have a portrait screen with lots of text for writing. But then when you get to editing, you will need more. You will need an outline, you will need cuttings, you will need all these things. All of this is obvious. And then thinking is probably more related to the map view, this kind of thing. So the whole point of me going through these things that you already know is that each one of them adds visual complexity. So to be able to toggle between them somehow will be very, very important. And I'm wondering also if there is a way, because this is really funny. Before I finished my thesis, I refused to think about AI or VR. But now that I'm all about the AR and VR, along comes Alan and talks about paper. And paper, from an interactive person's perspective, is just as intimidating. But it's quite clear to me that there is an untold promise there, just like with AR and VR. So I don't think I'm going to write in paper for this proposal, but I do think that we should think about the whole trip, right? Of you work a bit on your laptop, you put your headset on, and then enough of that, you go into the dining room, take the dining room table, and you work on that. It's really compelling.
Yeah, the paper bit is still definitely an open analysis or audit of its values. You know, like a journal may still win out as being the best way to do it.
So
But,
here's the thing that you will like. So Dave Millard, one of my two supervisors, absolutely brilliant guy, but you both get to meet him soon. Together with Mark Anderson, absolutely brilliant guy. You've both met him soon before. I don't know where he is now. He's busy with work. Anyway, they've written a paper for this year's Hypertext conference, which goes into looking at historical hypertext systems. But what they did that's really useful to us, they clustered the different types of hypertext systems for the kind of use. And what was really nice for me to hear a few weeks ago was hypertext for publication and hypertext for thinking is not the same thing.
yes.
And we get into that muddle a lot.
Yes. I've got so many thoughts on that. That's excellent. Is that the
Fire up.
7 types of hypertext?
Yes, it is.
I gotta
Which
make
is not
sure
the same as the
that.
7 issues of hypertext. That's from 1987.
Oh, let me see if I've got hands on that.
I don't think it's published
7
yet.
hypertexts. Mark Anderson, Dillard. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'm there's actually that's kind of a big theme of my own, right? And our own. But that so many of the tools that we use are oftentimes borrowed from different disciplines that had different purposes, and we don't realize when we borrow them that we're doing something different with them, right? I think the best example of the moment that I can think of is the idea of, or the fascination with the digital canvas, the digital whiteboard, that is a tool for thought, right? And it comes from, the canvas comes from an idea of blueprints and was on paper, not the paper's abstraction at this point, but it's an excellent tool for explaining, here is a design and a thing that I've thought through, now I'm presenting it to you, right? So that we can go through and explain the finer points of this design. And that's a great use case for that. But now it's being used as this kind of like, let's have thoughts together space, right? Which it may be perfectly suited for that. My only point is that we don't often think of that line of like, oh, actually we are like a loan word. We're taking this practice from a previous discipline, and because it worked there, we think it can work here the same way. Anyway.
Yeah, but obviously that's also where innovation happens.
Yeah, totally. It's also what winds up, for better or for worse, getting us stuck into the same practices for a long time.
Yep. I mean, one of the things that I find really fascinating is that the index can be thought of as an in-document hypertext system.
Yes, yes. In fact, yes. Tools for thought are in a lot of ways, explorations into the errata around content. A tool for thought isn't necessarily a tool for thought as much as it is as evolution of the index, and evolution of the table of contents, evolution of the glossary, and merging it into the core content, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So what we need to do is, yeah, we need to invite more people. I have had to focus on something else for a bit, but so here's the thing. A challenge with a VR space is like a challenge with a physical desk. It gets messy really quickly. So there's got to be some kind of rules and systems and categorizations to deal with stuff. Like, hide everything that is a glass half full of water. And in order to do that, these things, there needs to be some level of organization. But I'm wondering if maybe we should introduce the notion of physical paper as a first class item in the digital space. So whatever a record of a piece of paper is actually always known where it came from. So that, let's say you have it and you interact with the digital version of it, and it's all very good. But if you need to get to the original, it's available somehow.
That is what I'm working on in a way for this project. Once it gets more hybridized, the goal is to have a digital twin of greater or lesser fidelity to the paper, and so that one could even be a search tool. And pretty fun part about it, like the sci-fi version is sort of and Justin Bennett is working on the 3D print of these dowels. The sci-fi version is that there would be dowels on either end of the scroll, where it can now be automatically fast forwarded and rewound the paper, right? So this paper that's here, we're starting with a crank to just make it easier to fast forward and rewind. But once it gets tied to, like, say, a motor and Bluetooth, then you could actually imagine a world where the digital twin is up here and someone points to, or you do maybe a voice prompt requesting information about some books that you read, and it finds that in the digital twin map and then rewinds the actual paper that's in front of you to that point where you can go see your notes from that time. So it's sort of like microfiche, but tied to a smart search. Anyway,
It's
that's what I've been working on lately on it.
Have either one of you seen Oppenheimer yet?
No, I want to.
Did you say something, Peter?
I said no. I haven't seen a movie in ages.
Yeah, no, the reason I'm asking is partly because it's fun to talk about movies and, the black and white film stock and all of that. Some of the reviews it's a bit too long and the shots in black and white, you don't get to focus on them, blah, blah, blah. However, sometimes I think back to, wearing a white shirt and a black tie in Doug's days, as in there was a different atmosphere for how they worked with knowledge. So if we go all the way back to Oppenheimer's days, how they managed to do these incredible calculations and mental structures with pen and paper is absolutely crazy, of course. But it could be a fun thought experiment to make a Los Alamos kind of a Manhattan Project in this environment.
Oh, should we all wear white shirts with black ties?
I think that's
Have a
important.
uniform look for the whole group.
No more orange ties. Okay, fine, orange works.
Hey, Peter, what do you know? Peter Infrode, what do you know about Ted Nelson's zigzag structures?
Peter, you first.
Okay,
Oh,
I
I can
think,
rephrase the question if it'll help make an answer easier.
yeah, that might help.
Okay.
It's a hair too open-ended.
Yeah, I've been digging into it some and trying to see if it can use it for a different thing. And on the surface, I get excited about it because like, yes, this looks great, hyperthogonal, awesome. And then the more I kind of like try and actualize what the examples are, the more I get to feeling like, isn't this what interfaces do already?
Okay.
So my question would be, do we do that already effectively without a formal logic behind it? Do we already have hyperthogonal structures?
So there are many differences between Ted and me. He's an icon, I'm not. And other differences include he's not interested in input and output. You know, when I think about things, it has to be in a workflow. So these structures that he works on, he doesn't really care about how the data comes in. He doesn't really care how it can be used because he thinks, as an icon, as he should, that people should just work in his world. That's a little thing. Secondly is I care about the user experience because that's where the rubber hits the road. He cares about the data structures. So I don't know much of his data structures, but what I do know is that every time I've talked to him about taking Zigzag or Xanadu, whatever, into VR, he's absolutely, completely, and utterly not interested, which I find very interesting. Now, we might benefit from having an interview session with him in this community to try to learn from him, but I expect we'd have to double the length of it because he'll spend the first 2 hours ranting about stuff. I'm not saying that as a joke or
I'm gonna take that off the recording.
but that is Ted. So, however, looking at having spent a lot of time with Ted in cafes and everything, you know, he stayed with me for a while, many years ago, and we would go into Soho in the middle of the night and talk to people, have espressos, and they would go through the zigzags, and it would be amazing. There is a real sense of new interaction potential in this, especially when he flips over to the views that are basically almost, well, they're just experimental things that come out of this. And I really think that we could learn from that to do amazing thing in the VR space. I mean, Yuli, who did Soft Space, has amazing stuff, but he doesn't at this point seem to have ways to make these things happen through structure rather than individually placing things. So my answer is I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm still going through it and reading some other texts about it from other people, but like a primitive of his data structure is that every cell can be linked to at the beginning and at the end, and that really connect. I want to believe that I understand where he's going with that, but then I'm not so sure. Like he says that that's what's needed to prevent getting into like essentially messes, muddles. So that's the constraint, but I don't understand how it's a constraint. Like,
just going to search my own stuff here, see if I find something for you. I mean, the way I understand it is basically if you let's have hang on, let me just see what I find.
I don't know, the sense I got was that I'd have to implement it myself to really wrap my head around it, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
What have you watched of Ted's stuff?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I mean a good bit, but not so much about Zigzag. So it's kind of hard to like
Sorry.
yeah, if you've got best ofs, feel free to send them my way. I definitely am trying to get down to the meat of what Zigzag can do.
Did you see the Zigzag demo video where the biomedical researcher was using it?
No.
That's a good one. It's a very good one.
Please
I
send it
can't
along.
think of the URL. Do you have the URL for that, Frode? I know I saw it, but I don't remember having bookmark to it handy.
Let's just see here. Well, I mean, one of the things is, you know, yes, this connected documents thing, you know, Xanadu space, right, where you can see where quotes come from and all of that stuff, which is really, really fascinating because, first of all, not all academia actually quotes. They cite an entire work, so it's actually not that useful. In some disciplines, it varies a lot. But also, the very first thing when I did the Linnaean kind of a test thing we had by having a line go across the space, it was incredibly annoying in VR. It felt like there was a washing line and I had to avoid it. So I really think we should start experimenting with these things, because if you have it in front of you and it's a constrained volume, it may be better. But the whole idea of kind of free floating around these knowledge structures can become very annoying until we learn
Yeah.
what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if Zigzag and VR might not be perfect for each other, but I want to understand Zigzag more.
So what the problem we have, at least our shared problem, is that we have a large volume of stuff and we need to make it easier to move around it for a new person to get a grasp of it, right? And we agree that keywords are not necessarily useful because they're too small. But
Also, a lot of the keywords are unique to each individual document, which makes them somewhat less than useful in trying to get a grasp of how the overall collection works.
what is the technical word for that, Peter? Something
Oh.
Mark talked about. Nonce. Not nonsense,
that's
but
it.
nonce.
Nonce.
Wait, what? Nonce, N-O.
I'm not sure how it's spelled, but I think it's NONCE, as in they are keywords that are only used in that one document.
I'm guilty of that.
So here's the thing, guys. Let
Can
me
you
just
send me
talk.
sorry, can you send me if you find the Zigzag example, or give me keywords to try and find it before we move on?
Yeah. Search for just search on YouTube. That's what I've found. So I haven't found. This is so annoying that the video I did, QuickTime, dies. You know, I uploaded so much of Doug and Ted, and it just won't play anymore. But what I managed to get on YouTube, of course, will keep playing. So a problem with quote unquote rich media is that if we want it to live, we have to give it to someone else, like YouTube, to maintain it. I uploaded stuff to Vimeo. Vimeo won't let me show it until I pay for their pro account again. All my
Wow.
content is locked, which is crazy.
Yeah, Slack did that too. I'm a member of the Foresight community there, and suddenly one day, everything older than 6 months became locked off, including messages that I'd sent myself. And that was really frustrating because I'm a user, but I'm not the owner of the account that the stuff is paywalled behind now. So there's no way for me as a member of the community to get at it unless the community itself decides it's willing to pony up the money to pay for the entire community to have its system upgraded to the latest professional paid version. And until then, individual users are frozen for accessing even their own content. So Slack sort of turned evil as far as that went.
Yeah. So do a search on YouTube for Zigzag and epidemiology, maybe? Was that it or something else?
Some sort of a biochemical thing. It was showing molecular formula of different chemical compounds, and then jumping from the chemical compound into a periodic table and jumping back and forth across a couple of different disciplines almost.
Right.
I have a question for you guys. It's kind of an important one. So here we have a map and it's complete mess. It's just a document I haven't worked on yet. But with the whole nonce and keywords issue, maybe what we need to do is to introduce in definitions, because we have here VR is a concept and we have the plain text. Maybe we would, it would be good to have an explicit thing of saying this is related to, or this is a kind of. I know it's not exactly a novel thing, And I'm just wondering how it may fit in this, because if we have, because I have here includes the term, included in the term XR, that's what I'm talking about. So that means that not only for me manually doing this, but imagine if this is your library, right? So this is maybe the title of a book, this is as an author, and you have some keywords from something. Maybe you should be able to drag one onto the other, and the system says, what are you trying to do here? And what you're trying to do is say, these are basically the same things, to help it cluster.
I have strong feelings about a lot of that. But it would, it's you, that is a very important, undervalued topic. And I think it's one of the biggest problems right now in this space. Only a few people actually get how big of a deal it is. And I don't know that there is an obvious solution for it, but
well, let's be a bit practical. Let's go not to this. Let's go to maybe this one. Let's open our library. We have future of text 3. The problem is, the whole how much you can give an AI. But okay, so here we have one. We're just going to do keywords for this, right? So we'll do 5 keywords. So dreaming method is not really a keyword in that sense. It is a product name. Immersive literary experiences is more a description than a keyword, right? Text is useless. Digital environment useless. VR is kind of useful. It's a weird thing. It is nice to have VR built in here. Okay, this is more interesting. Look at this. Under Annie's book, it extracted these 5. I mean, we don't have to use all of them, but embodied, situated, and distributed cognition are all obviously part of cognition, right?
yeah.
It's not the way to do it.
I gotta go soon, unfortunately. But yeah, I think I would love to see a metacognition level layer of even this map, right? Imagine if it was a convention that all tags attached to families, and this is different than categories. This is like family resemblance or a head or something, right? So AR, in this case, AR, VR, XR, whatever, are in the scope of this work essentially interchangeable. So you say that they're a family, and now they, at this higher level, all those references go away, and you just have, whenever any of them is being referenced, it goes to this one, family, head of the family. Would that make these maps more comprehensible if you applied that same reasoning to all of these?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about now is basically spatial hypertext. Which is
well, I'm talking about trying to move away from a granularity of entities and trying to get closer to the meaning that we pull from what we read rather than the thing that is read itself.
Okay, good news. I found a link to the movie. I have it in the chat with a couple others.
Thank you, Peter.
So that will download the movie and then you should be able to play it locally.
Is
But
this
Meg,
a TED one?
no, this is the chemistry demo.
Oh, yeah, that is a TED one, yeah. Okay, so
Oh, this is great stuff. Thank you.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
I've been reading this one, the Graph Theoretic Introduction. And this one, the Gentle Introduction, but I hadn't seen the.
yeah,
for web
Andrew's.
developers.
Yeah, this is Andrew. Yeah, this is. I'm.
Excellent.
Yeah. This
Okay.
is cool.
I gotta go.
Okay.
Okay, have a good week, Ellen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. You too.
So here you have. Yeah, these links are good. Thank you, Peter, very much.
My pleasure.
Hmm.
Oh, and I like your look today. You sort of have that explorer vibe to you.
Got this at the airport in Norway. Good, thank you. Very explorer. Yeah. Let's pause the recording a bit.